Hey guys, this is Dan.
And I'm Ken.
We're from the informal podcast, Kills and Chills. We cover anything relating to basically murders, serial killers, disappearances, anything where people might end up dead.
And then from the dead part, I take over and I cover anything dealing with the paranormal, conspiracies, and cryptids.
So if you like Undercover Coven, you might like us as well too. So
check us out. We're on all podcast directories.
You have nothing to lose.
You really don't. We'll see you there.
You have nothing to lose and all the laughs to gain.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
I believe in the evil in human nature.
But she wouldn't even promise now.
Just like I would tell you, if you're going to do something, do it well. And leave something witchy. Leave a sign to let the world know that you were there.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
So did you hear about the movie Brightburn? Did you know what that is?
No. So you mentioned it earlier, but I don't know what it is.
It's like if Superman didn't have a moral compass and he just turned evil. But it's like it's like a scary movie. But I was really surprised because it didn't look that good, but it was like really fun and really, really, really gory.
Okay.
And bloody. So I thought that was cool.
I'm gonna look it up. Where did you see it?
I saw it illegally.
Jail time for you. I just spit on myself, sorry. That happens constantly, I don't know why.
And on that note, welcome to Undercover Coven.
Welcome back.
I'm Paula.
And I'm Allie.
Allie, the one that spits constantly.
Yep.
And we're back today. Sorry we didn't upload an episode last week, but we were going through it. through
and
stuff.
We needed a little break.
Yeah, we just needed to pause for a second.
Yeah.
And we preferred, instead of doing things like really quick and really, like to how do you say it? Like to upload something.
Last minute? Just to do it for doing it.
Yeah, we prefer to do something like really well researched and something fun. So
something that we like that we're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, Satan Spawn is here.
Hi.
So at the beginning of this episode, we had a little promo from Kills and Chills.
Yay, Kills and Chills!
Yay, Kills and Chills. They're really funny. I always laugh during their episodes.
Oh my god, they're hilarious.
And they, I feel like if we knew them in real life, we would be, really good friends.
Yep, I think so too.
They're so funny. I understand their sense of humor.
We get them, they get us.
Yeah. And also, Ken and I have the same, sick interest in guys. So that's funny too.
That's as in? Wait, I'm confused now.
Did you see The Boy?
Yeah.
You know when at the end, spoiler alert, at the end when he's wearing a mask, the guy's wearing a mask, and Ken said that he looked kind of hot wearing the mask. Oh. And I'm like, oh yeah, he did.
Okay.
So I sent her a message, and I'm like, because she posted a picture of the guy on Instagram, and I said, oh, he is hot. We have issues. And I sent that to, sent that to her. And also sometimes I'm watching, I remember when I saw It, and I remember watching Pennywise, and I'm like, wow, what is wrong with me? Because he started to look hot for some reason.
But the new one?
The new one.
Okay, but he is hot though.
No, but
not
as Pennywise.
Yeah, you have issues.
I have issues. That's why I'm in therapy.
That's true.
That's what therapy is for.
Do you talk to your therapist about that?
Sometimes.
I had a dream last night. Pennywise was in it. And the guy from The Boy was in it.
Oh my god.
And we were like... Then.
No, but I do tell her that I have these really weird attractions to weird people.
Okay.
But she says it's normal.
Which is, yeah, I was gonna say it's normal. I mean, I've had dreams, and I have this not weird, but I have this really fantasy, it's a fantasy, but I'm hoping that someday it happens, of both Chef Ramsay and the guy from what's his name? The guy from, oh my god, I can't remember now. His show.
Adam versus Food. That's the only one I can come up with.
No, not Adam versus Food. Man versus Food.
Man versus Food.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
His name is Adam.
That's...
I was upset. I had a huge crush on him. I would watch the shows and I'd be like, I'm gonna marry this man. I'm gonna marry him. And of course, I mean, fucking... there is no... Every time I go on YouTube, I have to go down a rabbit hole. Like, it's like, at this point, it's a freaking... It's like I have to do it is just watch Gordon Ramsay videos of him just being like a critic, and it's like, oh my god, yes.
My god. I feel like I don't know you anymore.
So I have this like really weird fantasy because they're friends in real life.
Oh, they are?
They're really good friends, yeah. And so like I saw this picture once of them like just like posing for a selfie, both together, and I was like, I feel like just my ovaries exploded a little bit.
Oh my god. So that's new. Thank you for sharing that information with the audience and with me,
it's
your
okay,
friend.
I'll tell everybody.
Oh really? I didn't know.
You didn't know?
I had no idea. I thought you were like into Zach Bagans and that's it.
Oh, well, Zach Bagans is another type of fantasy that I have. With him, I just kind of want to cuddle him, and like, he's such a child that I just like I want to do other things to him too, but mostly like...
He's so dramatic.
I want to baby him. He's so dramatic. It's crazy.
So dramatic. Okay. Would you like to read the review that I sent?
Yes, let's do it.
Please, let's just move on. Let's not open this door of fantasies, please.
We could keep going. Anyway, so let's So, one of the reviews that we got, that, of course, we love all the reviews. Thank you so much. Everyone's been super, super nice. But this one is from Haunted Happenstance. Happenstance? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. Haunted Happenstance. And they said, lesser known, so well done. They give us 5 stars. And it says, I was so excited to find this show. I love that they cover topics outside their routine. Their banter and communication style makes for such an easy listen, and everything is presented in such a light but well-researched way. Loving what I've heard. And I love that. Thank you so much.
Hooray! Thank you so much. Hooray. And yeah, check Haunted Happenstance out. It's a audio drama that a girl does from Boston, and it's like her living in this new place, and she has visions of things. Like, she sees ghosts and interesting things. No, but what I really liked about it is that there's a lot of people like involved, mm-hmm. but each one is like really deep. Like you want to get to know each one, and I thought that was really cool. So check Haunted Happenstance out.
Check her out.
Okay, want to get started?
Yes.
Because this is gonna be rough and difficult.
So Paula said she told me not to look it up because she wanted me to cry in front of her on camera.
Which isn't going to happen.
And I just looked at her and I was like, that's a really nice thought, but it's not going to happen. I might get really, really sad, but I would love to see you attempt it. Okay. And if you succeed, you know what? Gold star for you.
Yay, I get a sticker on my forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so I'll give you a kiss on your forehead too.
Yay, in like a year.
Yeah.
In a year.
Well, maybe a little less than a year, but yeah.
In a year. Okay, so normally I look on websites a lot about things that happened, in the past, like Nazi concentration camps, things like that. And the thing is that people were saying to watch a movie called Men Behind the Sun based on Unit 731. So I watched the movie first, And it's a movie about this whole project that took place in Japan during the Second World War. And then I learned, which is really awesome, that the corpses used in the movie were real. And I was like, wow, that's fucked up. Because I feel like that's one of the most disrespectful things I've ever heard.
It's like a poltergeist type of crap that happened.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, okay, so to get started, I just want to warn people, this is going to be detailed. This is going to be really hard. This is probably worse than Auschwitz, or probably worse than any Joseph Mengele cases I've ever heard. Wow. So, yeah. So let's get started. So we were taught about Nazis in school. We all know about what happened in concentration camps all over in Germany and in other places, and we know the experiments that people were subjected to there. Mm-hmm. But honestly, Unit 731 is worse, and it's probably the most shocking case of human experimentation that I've ever heard. It's the reason why Chinese and Korean people have certain problems with Japan, and this is the case. So. Yeah. 3,000 men, women, and children were subjected as marutas, or logs, to experimentation. These people were given to the unit by the Kempeitai. Oh, also, I apologize if I pronounce things incorrectly. They were given to the unit by the Kempeitai, which were the military police of the Japanese Imperial Army. Think about it as like the Gestapo in the Nazi, kind of thing. Kempeitai means law soldier regiment, and the victims of the Unit 731 were made up of Chinese, Soviets, Mongolians, Koreans, and other Allied prisoners of war. None of the victims involved in this case survived. None. And the unit also...
not even one person to tell a story?
Nope. All the testimonies, everything I'm going to talk about was... well, I'll get into it, but mostly are testimonies from people that were there conducting the experiments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the unit received generous support from the Japanese government up to the end of 1945. Mm-hmm. So Unit 731 was a research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army that undertook lethal human experimentation during the Second Sino-Japanese War of World War II. Basically, this is a small war that was going on while World War II was happening. Mm-hmm. It's responsible for some of the most notorious war crimes carried out by Imperial Japan. And this was based in the Pingfang district of Harbin, which is the largest city in the Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo, which is now Northeast Asia. A puppet state is a state that is independent in everything, like in language and a flag and everything, but it depends on another country for its resources. The objective of Unit 731 was to develop weapons of biological warfare, including plague, anthrax, cholera, and a dozen other pathogens. You get it, right? Their objective was to make biological weapons of destruction. Yeah. Okay, so it was known officially as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kwangtung Army. It was taken over and commanded until the end of the war by General Shiro Ishii, a combat medic officer in the army, and the facility was built between 1934 and 1939 and adopted the name Unit 731 in 1941. So the main protagonist here is Surgeon General Shiro Ishii. He proposed the creation of a Japanese biological and chemical research unit in 1930 after he went on a tour of the world. He went he traveled certain places, and he was like, wait, the Germans are already doing something similar over there, and there are some other places where human experimentation is being taken place, so let's just do it here, and maybe this will be like a good way to win the war. And Japan saw this as like a rare opportunity to get in front of the war, and that's why it received such strong financial support from the Imperial Army.
So, he will be more of an antagonist more than the protagonist.
Oh yeah, the antagonist. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just that there's no hero here.
There's no hero, yeah.
Yeah.
Just one antagonist against the world.
Oh yeah. So the codename Maruta, Maruta, the codename Maruta means logs, as in how many logs fell. The official cover story for Unit 731 was that it was a lumber mill. So as in the logs entered and the logs were people.
Oh my god.
So they called people logs, as in Marutas.
So it was like it was human trafficking at the end of the day.
Something like that. Something like that.
Something like trafficking.
The test subjects were selected to give all over a population from common criminals, captured bandits, anti-Japanese partisans, political prisoners, homeless, and mentally handicapped. And also, the military police could round you up for quote-unquote suspicious activities. This could be anything, literally. I mean, it involved infants, children, women, men, the elderly, anything that they considered to be that you were doing like something suspicious, you were taking away.
So it was really however they were feeling at the moment.
Oh, totally. Unit 731 was composed of 300 researchers, including doctors and bacteriologists, and they were all very desensitized because they had been performing cruel experiments on animals beforehand.
That's also a serial killer start.
Oh yeah. Also in this army, they were training children, and they were like brainwashing children.
Yeah. To
see the people as logs, as Marutas.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's begin with the activities that people were subjected to. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna start with germ warfare. So the objective, like I said before, the objective of Unit 731 was to develop weapons of mass destruction for use against the Chinese population and presumably American and Soviet units also. Mm-hmm. If war ever came to them, they were going to use these weapons. Prisoners were injected with diseases disguised as vaccinations to study their effects, and, for example, to study the effects of venereal diseases. Male and female prisoners were deliberately infected with syphilis and gonorrhea and then studied. Also, prisoners were raped and were forced to rape each other in order to spread the disease.
There was no other way to spread this disease?
They wanted it to evolve, and wanted to see how big it could get if they made, if it was all spread by sex. Because if you put out syphilis in the general population, how it's not going to be able to be spread by injections, for example. So the only way, logically, is to have sex with another person. Yeah.
Boring.
Plague fleas, infected clothing, and infected supplies encased in bombs were dropped on various targets. Now, we're not talking exactly, in this case, about people in Unit 731 precisely. Also, these Unit 731 bombed small villages in China with anthrax, cholera, and the plague, and it's estimated to have killed around 400,000 Chinese civilians. Tularemia was tested on Chinese civilians, and they would have like hot air balloons filled with disease and drop them on villages. Plague-infected fleas bred in the laboratories of Unit 731 were spread by low-flying airplanes upon Chinese cities, and the military would spray tens of thousands of people with bubonic plague epidemics. Apart from cholera and all those things I mentioned before, it could also be typhoid, paratyphoid germs. They would spread these into wells, into houses, into plants, anything to get people sick. Epidemics broke out shortly after, to the elation of many researchers, and paratyphoid was, quote-unquote, the most effective of all pathogens. Mm-hmm. Prisoners who pulled through, who lived the disease, were killed immediately, and those who got sickest the fastest were bled to death on a mortuary table, and the blood was used to transfect other prisoners. So they would get the blood from a prisoner who was really, really sick, and inject that blood into another person. And then, for example, the other thing they did was they would lay the person that was sickest on a slab, and then they would put fleas on him or bugs on them, and have the bugs suck up the blood, and then those bugs, they would release them on villages for other people to get sick. Yeah. The way they bled people out was putting a line into the carotid artery in the neck, and all the blood would be drained out, right? And then when there was no more blood, like barely any blood left, a guard would would jump on the person's chest, crushing their chest, breaking their bones, and they would have the last drops of blood come out of them. Yeah. And so these diseases were put on prisoners or on villages, and then they would try to like make this disease evolve as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I'm going to get into vivisection. Next one. Thousands of men, women, children, and infants interned at prisoner of war camps were subjected to vivisection, often without anesthesia and usually ending with the death of the victim. So vivisection is doing a, opening the body to check the insides of the body, but with the person alive. Instead of a dissection, they would do with the person alive. Why? Because they thought that anesthesia or any other chemicals could mess with the results they were waiting for. Yeah.
What the fuck?
They would remove organs to study the effects of disease on the human body. Mm-hmm. These were conducted, like I said, with the patient still alive because they thought that the death would alter the results. Subjects had limbs amputated and reattached to the other side of the body, while others had their limbs crushed or frozen, or had the circulation cut off to observe the process of gangrene. Sorry, gangrene. Some prisoners had their stomachs surgically removed and the esophagus attached to the intestines. Parts of other organs, such as the brain, lungs, and liver, were removed from some prisoners. And finally, when a prisoner's body was all used up, they would typically be shot or killed by lethal injection, and some maybe have been buried alive. Because obviously, if you take out like livers and lungs and blah, 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 you think that the person is dead, but sometimes they weren't dead, and people think that maybe they were buried alive.
Whoa.
Yeah. Here is the one that affected me the most, as in, holy shit, what is happening to the world? Like, what is going on through their brains? Which is frostbite testing. So, Army engineer Yoshimura Hisato conducted experiments by taking captives outside. Oh my god, this is gonna be, it makes me nervous. So they would take people outside, they would dip various parts of their body, or one part of their body, into water, and then allow them to freeze outside. Because outside it was winter. Once frozen, how they determined that a body part was frozen, they would dip, they dipped the arm, for example, into water, they had the person outside, then a guard a couple of hours later would come and take out all the ice or snow on top of the person's arm, and they would hit the limb with a stick. And if the limb sounded like a stick also, like a board hitting another board, that means the part of them was frozen.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so...
Wait, I have a question about that.
Sure.
So, how would they stay there? Because, okay, you put your arm in frozen water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it's gonna start hurting.
Oh, yeah.
How would they hold them down for them to stay?
Some people were tied to poles with their arms tied to another pole sticking upwards. Or things like that. Or people were like tied, for example, if it was a foot or a leg, they were tied up so that their leg was upwards.
Yeah.
But they were totally restrained, and it doesn't matter that it hurt.
Wow.
Remember, these people weren't people to these researchers. They were logs. They were less than human. So it didn't matter.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that if they just left them there untied eventually they're going to take their limbs out, but just wondering how they were holding them there.
Oh, totally
and
tied
it's
up.
Literally just tied up.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So then Hisato, after these appendages, limbs were frozen, they were trying to find different methods, and the most effective method to rewarming the frozen limb. Sometimes he did this by dousing the limb with hot water, sometimes by holding it close to an open fire, and sometimes by leaving the subject untreated overnight to see how long it took for the person's own blood to thaw it out. So what they show...
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
What?
The effects of different water temperatures were tested by bludgeoning the victim to see if any of the areas were still frozen. So what they show in Men Behind the Sun, which is honestly the most unnerving thing I've ever seen in my life, was a woman who was a little, not well in the head.
Off, yeah.
They take both her arms, doused it in water, put her outside with her arms, straight forward, and then they would drop water on her every certain amount of time until her limbs were completely frozen. Yeah. And then they brought her inside, put her arms in warm water, took them out, and then they would hit her, and the skin would just completely come off. It would just be like her looking at her bones on her arms, because everything that was flesh, muscle, tendons, everything would just come off.
Gone.
Everything, the only thing left was bone.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And I want to say it again, this was done to children, to women, to men, to anything, to anybody.
Anybody that could get their hands on, technically.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The next thing is weapons testing. So human targets were used to test grenades. So they would have human targets. They had a field, and they had people tied up to poles in different distances, and then they would throw grenades. And they would see how these grenades affected people and to what distance people were affected. Like, for example, did the farthest one that was like some kind of meters away get affected by this grenade thrown at, some kind of meters closer to us? Things like that.
I love it how they think that this is all for testing purposes. This was just a torture center.
Oh, totally. But this was all done with researchers, medical, doctors, surgeons, but what we have to remember here is that these people were not seen as people. They were seen as experiments.
I know. It's just...
So if I was a doctor, I'm not saying like this is justified. I'm just looking at it from their point of view. If I was a doctor and they were like, "Oh, you can conduct all the experiments you want on this," and they just gave it to you, and they had like the best technology ever, of course you were gonna not look at people as, these people being held prisoner as people. They were just human, things to be played with.
That's exactly what they were doing, just playing with them.
Totally. Okay, so they tested grenades, flamethrowers, tested on both exposed and clothed skin. And also, this is kind of obvious to me, but they put gas chambers and, gas people.
Because that's an original idea.
This was at the same time as
the
Nazis. And also, humans were tied to stakes and were used to test pathogen-releasing bombs, chemical weapons, explosives.
A question. So for the gas chambers, were they also testing them?
Yeah, they were trying to see.
Led to whatever they used in, like they were doing in Germany and I don't know Austria, but like Germany and all the other places with the gas chambers. That everything was being tested there and then just like taken away, I guess, to like taking to the other places. I don't know how to explain it.
This was all happening at the same time.
Okay.
It's just that in Japan, this was like 10 times worse. Wound patterns and penetration depths were then compared to the bodies of the dead in comparison to people that were dying. Mm-hmm. Heavy objects were dropped on bound prisoners to study crush injuries. Subjects were locked up and deprived of food and water to learn how long humans can survive without them. And victims were allowed to only drink seawater, for example, or were given injections of mismatched human or animal blood to study transfusion and the clotting process. What the fuck? Meanwhile, prolonged X-ray exposure sterilized and killed thousands of research participants, as well as inflicting horrible burns when emitting plates were miscalibrated or held too close to the person's nipples, genitals, or faces. Because it'll burn you. To study the effects of high G-forces on pilots and falling paratroopers, Unit 731 personnel loaded human beings into large centrifuges and spun them at higher and higher speeds until they lost consciousness and or died. Which usually happened around 10 to 15 Gs, although young children had a lower tolerance for acceleration forces. And they also had these pressure chambers where they would put people inside, and they would level the pressure till the person's eyes exploded. In the movie, they put a man in a pressure chamber, and the guy would just get like fatter and fatter. They would expand, and then his bowels, his large intestine would just come out of his anus, basically, because it would just explode in the inside of his body would just explode. Yeah, so that's horrible. The next activity is syphilis. So, like I said, members were orchestrated to rape other members that were injected with syphilis. And I have a quote from a prison guard that was there, and this is a quote from the book Unit 731's testimony. It says, "Infection of venereal disease by injection was abandoned, and the researchers started forcing the prisoners into sexual acts with each other. 4 or 5 unit members, dressed in white laboratory clothing, completely covering the body with only eyes and mouth visible, rest covered, handled the tests. A male and female, one injected with syphilis, would be brought together in a cell and forced into sex with each other. It was made clear that anyone resisting would be shot," end quote. And to ensure the effective transmission of the disease, syphilitic male prisoners were ordered to rape both male and female prisoners, and then those victims would be monitored to observe how the disease would evolve inside their bodies. Yeah. And if, for example, let's say a guy raped a person in a member, and let's say the other person didn't get infected with syphilis, they would just rape them until it happened. They had to get syphilis. Wow. The next activity is forced pregnancy. So female prisoners were forced to become pregnant for use in experiments. And the hypothetical possibility of vertical transmission of diseases from mother to child was tested. So they would inject them with, syphilis and other venereal disease. Other diseases. And that's the reason, that's why they, in order to observe the mother and the baby afterwards, that's the whole justification for this experiment. Yeah. Fetal survival and damage to mother's reproductive organs were objects of interest. This was like a highly demanded experiment.
Yeah.
They suffered exposure to chemical weapons and often suffered crush injuries, bullet wounds, shrapnel injuries, and then the pregnant subjects were opened up and the effects of the fetuses were studied. This was all while they were awake.
These poor people.
There were a large number of babies born in Unit 731, but none survived.
Survived?
Yeah.
Well, they're probably all sick, but still.
And and then the other possibility is that they were just killed, which I'm going to get into later.
For testing, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I have a testimony from another guard, and it says, quote, this is from the same book, quote, one of the former researchers I located told me that one day he had a human experiment scheduled, but there was still time to kill. So he and another unit member took the keys to the cells and opened one that housed a Chinese woman. One of the unit members raped her. The other member took the keys and opened another cell. There was a Chinese woman there who had been used in a frostbite experiment. She had several fingers missing and her bones were black with gangrene set in. He was about to rape her anyway. Then he saw that her sex organ was festering with pus oozing to the surface. He gave up the idea, left and locked the door, then later went on his experiment work. End quote. So that's the limit. I mean, this woman had gangrene and had her limbs, missing. Yeah. But, since her vagina had like pus coming out, it was probably infected. That's the limit to not raping these women.
Wow.
Okay, so the end of Unit 731 came in August 1945 after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, after the nuclear bombs. And the Soviet Army invaded this place which is now northern China, and absolutely annihilated the Japanese army. And the emperor read his surrender declaration over the radio. Unit 731 after this was officially disbanded. With the coming of the Red Army in August 1945, UNIT had to abandon the work in haste. Ministries in Tokyo ordered the destruction of all incriminating materials, including those in Pingfam. Potential witnesses, such as the 300 remaining prisoners, were either gassed or fed poison, while the 600 Chinese and Manchurian laborers were shot. So everybody was killed.
Wow.
Everybody was killed. Everybody was, just made them disappear. Papers were burned. Books were burned. Research was burned. Everything was just They were trying to make like this didn't happen at all. Shiro Ishii, the commander, ordered every member of the unit to disappear and, quote, take the secret to the grave. Potassium cyanide vials were issued for use in the event that the personnel was captured. So what they were ordered to do was, if they were captured or somebody saw them or knew what was happening, they would have to take a pill and die. Skeleton crews of Ishii's Japanese troops blew up the compound in the final days of the war to destroy evidence of their activities, but many were sturdy enough to remain somewhat intact. So they put people that were inside the cells. They were sometimes shot, but let's say some people stayed alive. It didn't matter because the place was burned down anyway. There was only a small part of the compound that stayed up, and that is now part of a museum.
Do you think, would it be possible if somebody escaped?
It's difficult. And if they did escape, people didn't know how to read or anything, so I don't think they knew exactly how to say, this happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the part that kind of pisses me off. Later on, after all this happened, many of the surgeons and researchers still practice medicine, still did some human experiments in other places of the world. But here's the part that really ticks me off. But I don't know. Okay, so the U.S., the United States, granted immunity to the physicians of Unit 731 in exchange for their testimony, any research papers they had, anything that, could...
Yeah.
That
could help the case.
That could help
Everybody
the case,
knows,
exactly, yeah. But the exchange was only to the U.S. and not to any other countries that were in war with the U.S. That could be in war with the U.S.
Yeah.
And they wanted this research because, obviously, if they had made any medical discoveries or anything for the U.S. to have them. Here are the discoveries. There was a consensus among U.S. researchers in the post-war period that the human experimentation data gained in Unit 731 was of little value to the development of American biological weapons and medicine. They regarded the data as, quote, crude and ineffective, end quote, with one expert even deeming it, quote, amateurish.
Because they could do so much better?
I don't know. Okay, so to this day, we're talking about all these years after.
Yeah.
Japan has not apologized for, and neither has China or anybody else forgiven the atrocities that the Japanese Imperial Army committed in Unit 731. And the last witnesses of the unit are growing old, they're dying, and it's possible that this matter has not been 100% discovered, and it's honestly something that isn't talked about enough.
Yeah.
I only discovered it this year. I had no idea this was happening or had happened. Yeah. And if you want to see more, and it's really graphic, I'm just warning you, watch the movie Men Behind the Sun on YouTube, actually. Wow. And that's Unit 731.
That was fucked up.
Any questions?
What do we know about that general guy?
He died of cancer. He died. Yeah. He died, but he didn't say a word.
But yeah, I just wanted to know, like, what do we know about his life? Like, why would he... You know what? I don't know. I don't trust generals in general. No pun intended. But I just, like, why... Like, I understand that they were... I understand the fact that they weren't seen as people. But for you to conduct... Like, for you to get to that state, to that point where it's like, okay, just torture this person for the sake of
medicine,
because who fucking cares about them? Like, that's the way that I see it, right? That was like, it got to that point where it was like, who cares? We're like, how fucked up are you that you think you're doing good with this? Like, I don't think they thought that they were doing good. I think it was just torture, because at this it got to a point that it was just, it wasn't stupid for research purposes.
Yeah.
Like, it's too much for it to have been looked at as research.
No, I get it. Like, I remember when I read about Joseph Mengele, I was like, this guy is a psychopath in a large line of psychopaths, but this guy is like the worst psychopath in Nazi Germany. And I think that in this case, first of all, these people were really desensitized to what they were doing. I mean, you're coming from a long line of experimentation with animals. And if they didn't care about the animals, like,
why should they care about
should they care about people in, like, air quotes? Because, again, these weren't people to them.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess the fact that they were mostly, like, uneducated, most likely, most of them, it played a big factor on it. Because, I mean, think about it. They can't really... Somebody who's uneducated, I'm not saying that they can defend themselves, because they could very well defend themselves, but I feel like if they're in that group and, like, you know, like an authority is just telling you, this is for research, you have to do it. They can't really they might not be able to express themselves correctly, I guess, if that's a way of saying it, correctly, to say, what the fuck are you doing?
I think
this is not research.
I think there were people who did say that. Because you can't have 3,000 men, women.
And nobody,
And nobody said anything. I think people said things. It's just that they were immediately killed. Or they maybe had, like, the worst experiments done on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to also think, what I didn't know about this is that, okay, they had prisoners. But they were also from all over the world. Like, some testimonies, I read a paper from the New York Times that said that, for example, they had a room where there were jars with body parts in them.
Yeah.
And they had labels, like, for example, Soviet, American, European, English, French, like, from everywhere. I think they just... Oh, yeah. I just think they caught people and just sent them to the prison.
They could, yeah.
Yeah. But this is...
Because if they could literally send them... Like, if they could arrest them for absolutely, like, sneezing, or you walked the wrong way, then, of course, they're gonna get a wide variety of people in there. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just a little crazy to me that this wasn't more known. And I think it's mostly because of the fact that all the prisoners died, and then I guess the rest of the people that worked there were how do you call that, sworn to secrecy.
Yeah.
But it's still a little interesting, the fact that there is still guards or whoever, like, because the testimonies have to come from
people who work there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it's still a little interesting that there were still people that came out and told the truth, because I guess they were granted immunity by the U.S.
Yeah, but still, you have to think, like, for example...
stay quiet either way.
In the paper I read, the people that were giving the testimonies, they weren't named. And I think it's because maybe they were granted immunity, but maybe other people in Japan, like, people that exist to this day, were going to be like, wait, he said something, we have to kill him. Because this was a promise. This was a promise to the country.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but this is not well known at all. And I think it needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
We all know about the Holocaust. We all know what happened there. It's
we know the horrible things that were done, but
we've seen the pictures, we've seen the stories, we've seen the movies. But nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this. And there are pictures and things like that, but nobody talks about it. And if you, like, I'm serious, watch the movie. It explains a lot there, and it's really graphic. I think it's pretty well done. I think it's an 80s movie. But yeah, it's cruel, it's disgusting, it's atrocious. And you could really get you can really get a sense of what happened. But these poor people, oh my god, this is just horrible.
It's very fucked up. Yeah.
Horrible.
Wow.
And the other thing is that we're talking about something that happened at the same time as the Holocaust. Yet one is really well known and the other not, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I was like, the whole time you were saying, it's just like, because the whole, like, gas chamber things were like, were they testing them there and then sending them to, like, telling Germany, like, hey guys, this is working, go ahead, do a gas chamber, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's fucked up. This is what I understand. Those were other times, and like that was in the past, but it happened. And what scares me the most is that humans are scary. Humans are the most terrifying. Like, human nature is terrifying. So the fact that it happened before and whatever, we're more informed, and there's still ignorant people out there. Because that's a little bit of ignorance, like ignorance combined with power and money. That's what that is.
Yeah.
And it's just scary to think that something like that could happen in the future or the near future, maybe far future.
Or it's already happening and we have no idea.
Or it's already happened. Exactly. And we have... Exactly.
But yeah, you have to be like... You have to be a real... In my opinion, a real scumbag of a person.
Yeah.
To do this to another person. To not be able to look at them and say, wait, we look exactly the same. How are you not a person? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand how somebody can be so blind to the fact that they're doing this to people. But you know what? It happened in Germany. Yep. It happened in Japan. It happened here in Chile. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Me neither.
But it's horrible. It doesn't. It is. This is just terrible. Yeah. But, you know, we have to know about these things in order to learn and not repeat the same mistakes. But there's always going to be some idiot out there who thinks that some race of person is less than human.
And now we're into Trump. I'm just kidding.
It's just that I'm thinking about exactly that because I'm thinking about the...
what's happening with those children in the border.
Yeah.
That's something that would make me cry. Like, I saw that in the news and I was like, that is unacceptable.
Yeah.
That is extremely unacceptable. And the fact that there are what are they called? Like Trump, people, office people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I forgot the name for it, the term for it. That are saying, yeah, they don't need basic, like literally flat out said on TV.
Yeah.
Like they don't need toothpaste. They don't need blankets. They don't need basic fucking needs.
It's just that's what, for example, Alexandra Ocasio, the one of the people from the Senate, you know, she was like, this is a concentration camp, and people kept saying that was disrespectful. But concentration camps didn't start out as concentration camps. It wasn't like that at first. Yep. And this is just going to evolve and turn into something like that. These people, these immigrants, and I was one of them, are being treated less than human. They are... Yep. This is terrible. And this is happening to many people, but mostly children. Can you imagine? Like, I have family that, because we were illegal immigrants in the U.S., I have family whose kids got taken away from them when they got to the U.S. And those kids, like, are not well in the head now.
Yep.
This is something that's traumatizing them. How can people be like, oh, it's okay. They don't need that. My God. If you think like that, you are so wrong. Please.
Exactly.
Please be more, please sympathize. Empathetic. Put yourself in other people's shoes. And how can you allow this to happen? How?
Exactly.
That could have easily been me. It could have easily been me.
That's what, exactly. And it's just like, anybody is, it's not like we're all human, but at this point, like, what's happening, they're children. That's what upsets me the most, is that, it sucks when it happens to, you know, people our age or like older people and adults as well. Yes, it upsets me because everyone deserves to be treated equally, and we all have rights, the same rights. But it's just that children are innocent. They haven't done anything for them to deserve something like that.
Yeah.
They probably don't even know what's going on.
They don't. And plus, they're coming from, for example, a Spanish-speaking country, and all of a sudden they're going to these camps and they're being talked to in English. Do you think people are talking to them in Spanish?
Of course they don't fucking care.
These people are going to grow up and not trust authority figures, or they're going to have PTSD or depression or anxiety. Like, I don't know. I don't know how people can look at others and be like, oh, they're less human than
Yeah.
me. Like, how?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, this is a fun.
And on that
episode.
note, oh god, this is horrible. But we have to learn about these things, people.
Yeah.
We have to.
We need to educate ourselves and see what we can do to help. Maybe educating others is a way of helping. And
It is.
please don't be that scumbag.
Please. And also realize that this happened. Like, it's so necessary to get it through your head that this isn't a story. It's not like a myth.
It's not a movie.
It's not a movie. This is fucking reality.
Yep.
Be aware of other people's perspectives of life. People don't live the same life as you.
Yep.
And they don't see the world in the same eyes as you do. Get that through your head. Because it's the only way that we're going to be able to understand each other.
Exactly.
Oh my god, it makes me so angry. It makes me so angry.
Yeah, it makes me angry.
Anyway, next week we will we will be back with something, I don't know, a little bit more lighthearted, maybe.
Maybe we'll do some
Something
stand-up. We'll tell some jokes.
Maybe we should do something funny.
We should.
Maybe another Chilean
I was
getting
just
pregnant
thinking
thing.
that.
Yeah. Like El Tuetue or somebody.
We'll look
like
for the
that.
most like ridiculous Chilean legend, and we promise we'll make you laugh.
Even more ridiculous than El Cuero.
Maybe we won't be able to find it.
If you don't remember El Cuero, it's one of the past episodes, but it was basically a scab that got people pregnant. Oh my god. Yeah, let's do something lighthearted for next week, because sometimes in this world where horrible things happen, we need to laugh.
We do.
Yeah, so thank you to Peter, as always. Thank you to other people. Everybody who's left reviews, we will get to them. We will be reviewing. I've been reviewing a lot. And yeah, and if you want to leave us a little donation, you can go to ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/undercoverkevin, and leave us a little $3 or whatever dollar tip you would like. It would really help us out a lot.
Yes.
And yeah, anything else?
No. I hope you have a good rest of your week. You, Paula, and everyone else as well.
Yes, you too, Aliv. Have a great week. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Oh, follow us on social media at Undercover Kevin. And you can find us anywhere. Which is actually Instagram and Twitter, because we don't have anything.
But you can go at Undercover Kevin.
Yeah. And please leave us a review and rate us, please. It'll be really nice of you.
You can also email
Do us
us
that favor.
at undercoverkevin@gmail.com.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. I feel like we're exhausted
And
after this episode.
I feel very hungry right now. I think I'm gonna go order food.
Me too.
Yay, let's order food.
Okay.
Let's go watch Stranger Things.
Binge it.
Yeah, I'm on episode 7. I'm gonna binge it. I'm gonna order food and I'm gonna binge the
I'm
rest.
gonna do the same. I'm gonna order food and I'm gonna start it right now, actually. So.
Yay! Then we can talk about it.
I'm excited. Okay.
Okay, everybody, have a great week. We love you. Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.